Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The Juwan Howard era of Michigan basketball is off to a much better than expected start, losing only to number 1 Louisville at their place last week. With us today is beat writer James Hawkins of the Detroit News to talk Michigan hoops. First, a few of my thoughts to get us started today. We found out on Sunday we're headed to the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day to play Alabama. I'm not sure you could call this a good matchup for us, but there is no denying it is a great opportunity. Alabama is 10-2, and I would argue they are the most talented team we will play this year, even more talented than Ohio State. If Tua hadn't gone down, the Tide would have rolled into the playoffs. Even without Tua, this is a very scary and talented team, which is also why it's a great opportunity for us. Beat Nick Saban and Bama in the Citrus, and we will have positive momentum going into the spring. If nothing else, this is a ratings blockbuster matchup, and other than the playoff games, should garner a huge television audience. In the coming weeks, we'll spend more time previewing the Citrus Bowl. This week, let's give Juwan Howard and his team some time and attention. You never know how a coaching transition will go. So far, though, it's been seamless and fun to watch. Beat writer James Hawkins joins us next on this week's Game Day segment here on the Michigan Man in partnership with our friends at SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Stay with us. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week is beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News. And with football season, almost over, it's time to focus in on basketball. What's already been a great start, James. Welcome back to the show.
Yep, good to be back. Thanks for having me.
I don't think any of us knew what to expect when the season tipped off. It's a big transition year, but I think at this point, it's fair to say for those of us paying attention, Juwan has these guys playing some hoops right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't know how many people, coming into the season, if people really thought Michigan was going to get off to the start that they did. And if you looked at this stretch that they are in the middle of right now, too, where they went to the Battle for Atlantis in the Bahamas, and there was 4 ranked teams. I don't know if many people expected Michigan to kind of win that tournament. And, through 9 games of the season, I don't know if many people, pegged their one loss to be against the top-ranked team to the nation on the road.
Yeah.
I don't think you could really envision a better start to the whole Juwan Howard era here at Michigan. And, just what they've been able to do so far has been, nothing short of impressive so far.
Oh, no, absolutely. And it's amazing to watch. The first few games I tuned in, the pace we were playing at was so fast compared to the Beilein era. After the first few games, I said, I wonder, do we have the personnel that can really keep up this kind of a pace? But they have so far.
Yeah, they got, a lot of the guys can, it just kind of speaks to the versatility of all the players they have on the team. It doesn't seem like guys have had trouble kind of adapting to Juwan's system and wanting to kind of pick up the pace. There's several guys, Isaiah Livers has said, John Beilein, he didn't have a problem with, the team taking, quick shots just as long as they were smart shots. And, the big thing that Juwan Howard kind of emphasizes is, if you get an open shot to shoot it, he kind of considers, if you turn down an open shot, he kind of considers that a turnover. But yeah, I don't think the guys have had any trouble kind of adapting to kind of, playing at a faster pace and kind of wanting to get out in transition and score. I think they've taken to it pretty well. And, I think that's something that Michigan did well last year was when they were able to get out in transition and kind of score and get out on the break. And, it hasn't really been a rocky transition at all here going from Beilein system to Howard system. But yeah, I think that just kind of speaks to the character of the guys and just their versatility and being able to adapt from, one system to another, just within this short amount of time.
I think another question a lot of fans had was after the defense the team had played the last couple of years is, how would that translate with
Coach Howard coming in. He was a defensive specialist in the NBA, to be fair, though. Right now, this team, might have been sloppy the first few games. You can say that about a lot of aspects of the game, but the defense is really tightening up and playing very well, too, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, their defense is still, one of their strengths of the team. And, I think they showed that in that Louisville game. They're shooting. Some of their numbers were the worst in years. I think it was their lowest shooting percentage since that horrific South Carolina game where I think they shot 19% like 3 years ago. And it was their lowest scoring total since I think that loss at Eastern Michigan like 5 years ago. And, when you just look at those numbers and you saw at one point in the second half, I think they cut it to within 4 points. And, Louisville, they could have kind of run away with that game at any point, but they never did just because Michigan's defense kind of kept them in that game and kind of, kept it from being, kind of being a blowout. And, you think of that too. They were playing their fourth game in 7 days, and that kind of speaks, I guess, volumes to the defensive effort that they gave in that game. But yeah, they are doing some things differently. If you think back to last season, one of the big things they did on ball screens was they hard-hedged a lot of ball screens with John Teskey. But this season, there's a little bit of a difference in like the ball screen coverages. Like you see, a lot of times John Teskey kind of drops back to kind of cut off the lane and protect the rim more so. And I think they're doing that more so just because as we alluded to with the offense, so they kind of play with a quicker pace. I think they're doing that more so to kind of help, I guess, conserve John Teskey's energy on the defensive end, so they're not kind of burning him out as much over there because they're trying to get out and run as much as possible and kind of pick up the pace on the offensive end. But for sure, they still have the defensive backbone of the team that they've had from the past couple seasons in Xavier Simpson and John Teskey. And as long as Xavier Simpson's on the floor, guys are going to be told to play defense. They're going to have to play to the same defensive level that Xavier, obviously Xavier does, and he obviously sets the tone for that team on the defensive end.
Talking about the tone setters, Teskey, Livers, Xavier, Simpson, they are the clear-cut leaders in many ways on this team, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. They're the veterans on this team, and you kind of look at you look across college basketball. I don't know how many teams have 2 senior starters, 2 junior starters in their lineup, and the one thing that I think that helps with any coach in the transition when you're taking over a team is, you can't duplicate winning experience. If you look at, the resume that Isaiah Livers, John Teskey, Xavier Simpson, the resume that these guys have, they've played in Big Ten tournament finals, they've played in, Sweet 16s, the national title game. These guys have no shortage of winning experience. And, that's the one thing. When Juwan Howard takes over, obviously there's concerns. Can Juwan Howard coach? How they going to replace the team's top 3 leading scorers when they all left early? You can just look at this. You have core pieces that all they know what to do is win. I think that's you've kind of seen that so far. That's like I said, it's kind of hard to replace winning experience, and Michigan has had no shortage of it, and it starts with the those 3 guys that they have kind of leading the team this season.
Absolutely agree 100% there. And another aspect of the team now is some of the youth we're seeing. Franz Wagner, a guy we waited to see ever since the day he committed, and of course then he had the wrist injury. Played in 5 games so far, but I like what I'm seeing. You really can see a huge upside in him, James, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously he had the delayed debut, like you mentioned, with the wrist injury, and I don't think he's close to being to his top form yet. I think the best with him is still yet to come. Because you look back, he got thrown into the fire there in the battle for Atlantis, kind of getting thrown into the starting lineup and having to play heavy minutes in 3 games in 3 days, and that's not an easy task, especially considering the competition they played with Iowa State, North Carolina, and Gonzaga, and then obviously going on the road and playing Louisville. He hasn't really had a ton of time to kind of get back to his peak form and playing shape, and like I said, I think that's going to take some time for him to get there. But definitely, the one thing that's kind of impressive so far is just his defense. There's been plenty of times where, especially in the battle for Atlantis, he just makes a lot of smart defensive plays. Like he just gets his hands in the passing lanes and he'll deflect passes. Sometimes without even looking, he just guys cutting, he kind of just gets his hand down there and he kind of deflects the pass. And I mean, I don't think his shooting stroke has been there. I think the big thing that he was known for, when he was playing with Alba Berlin in Germany was, his outside shooting. And I mean, I think that's still, coming along. I think that'll kind of, get better, like I said, as he kind of gets his legs back under him. But yeah, definitely the potential is there, and you can see why. And I think just the biggest thing with him is his defense, because, I mean, if you look at the first 4 games when he was out and Adrian Nunez was on the floor, I think, defense was kind of the biggest thing where, Adrian Nunez had he left a lot of room to be desired. And now with Franz in that lineup, I mean, most teams, their top player, top scorer is going to be, probably a perimeter guy, a guy in the wing, and having a guy like Franz, who, is kind of ahead of the curve, I guess, defensively, and is a pretty smart defender. I think that helps. And I think you can look at what he kind of did against Louisville. I mean, he kind of got tasked with guarding Jordan Nwora, who's a, preseason All-American. And I mean, granted, he scored, 20 plus points, but I mean, it took him 23 shots to get there. So I think that kind of, speaks to the, Franz's defensive ability.
Well, when the season started, I think we all knew we had Teskey, Livers, Xavier. A lot of the offense was going to come through there, hoping Franz Wagner would step in. But what surprised me so far is the improvement we're seeing from some returning players. Eli Brooks, huge difference from last year. David DeJulius looks like a different player. And now Brandon Johns Jr. looks like he's slowly but surely getting more confident, I think is the big thing with Brandon from what we read. But they are contributing nicely. Even Austin Davis getting minutes.
Right, yeah. I mean, they've had numerous guys step up, and I think that's been one of the key takeaways so far to the season. I mean, they've had different guys kind of step up at different times. I mean, you look at the Iowa State game where John Teskey gets in early foul trouble. It was kind of Colin Castleton and Austin Davis kind of stepped up and kind of picked up the slack in that game. And then you look at the North Carolina game where Xavier Simpson was in foul trouble. You have Eli Brooks and Dave DeJulius kind of pick up the slack in that game. And I think you mentioned the confidence with Brandon Johns. I think confidence has been like the one reoccurring word I've heard a lot this season. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've heard it as much in past seasons, and that's the big thing. A lot of players on this team have been talking about with Juwan Howard is just like the confidence he instills and kind of builds up in guys. I think that's what you've been seeing so far, and I think heading into the season, I think one of the bigger questions was kind of what's going to happen at that 2-guard spot. When with the spot that Jordan Poole vacated. I mean, Eli Brooks has, more than filled that role. I mean, that hasn't even been a concern at all this season. And like we said, his confidence. He mentioned at times last season when he would come in, with the role he had coming off the bench, if he would, come in and miss a shot, he would kind of maybe be deterred, kind of lose confidence and kind of pass up on that next shot. But this season, that hasn't really happened at all. He seems a lot more confident, kind of taking shots, even if he misses a couple early shots. He hasn't been, he hasn't shied away from taking that next shot, and I think that, just speaks to the confidence that he has in himself this season. And the same thing, with Brandon Johns. He mentioned he would get in his head at times last season, and obviously too it helps with Brandon because he was playing out of position, out of necessity last year, just because that backup 5 spot behind John Teskey last year, as we know, was kind of a revolving door. There really wasn't a solid replacement that they could constantly turn to last season, and now he's back out at the 4, and we saw that he kind of knocked down some open shots in the game against Iowa, and just kind of the hustle plays and the energy that he has been providing. I think that's been one of the most encouraging signs so far this season is just the depth that Michigan has shown, and just how in different games it seems like it's just been different guys stepping up each time.
At the kind of pace that Juwan plays, it's not like Coach Beilein's style, which it seemed like by Big Ten season he had a 7 or 8 man rotation he was pretty much going with. But if we're going to play this pace this year, the depth is going to be key, especially when we get into February and March, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Depth is key every year, and I think that's, you just look at this stretch that they've played in. It was kind of hard to kind of gauge this Michigan team over like those first 4 games. The Creighton game was kind of an early test, but I think when they're in the 7-game stretch that they're in, I think was kind of when you're going to I think everyone thought we were going to learn more about this team. I think that's the one thing they've shown is just the depth that this team has had, and that's key heading into the Big Ten season, because as you know, the Big Ten is a different beast. And I mean, just looking around the conference, I think we can see that the Big Ten is going to be, among one of the best conferences in the nation again. I mean, just look at what Ohio State has done, kind of blowing out, Villanova and North Carolina, and what Purdue did, dismantling Virginia, and Michigan State's still going to be one of the top teams, and Maryland's what a top 5 team again. So I mean, that's always key, especially heading into the Big Ten season each and every year, is kind of building that depth. And Michigan has certainly done that so far this season, and it's been nothing short of encouraging. Just seeing some of the guys that played these smaller roles last season, and you kind of didn't know what you were going to get from this season. But I mean, like we pointed to, I mean, Colin Castleton has kind of upped his game, and he's kind of helped solidify that backup 5 role. Like I mentioned earlier, that was kind of a question mark the entire season last year. And then Dave DeJulius has come along, and he's talked about how Juwan Howard has kind of, been like CPR to his career, because he's come in and he's kind of been that key guard, the first guard off the bench. And like we said, Brandon Johnson's just playing with confidence, and that's kind of the big key with him. And I mean, these past few games, you've kind of seen that they've kind of just been kind of playing more of an 8-man rotation. Kind of the main guys coming off the bench have been Dave, Colin, and Brandon. But I mean, like we've seen so far this season, I mean, they have guys who can come in if they need to go deeper into the bench, if there's foul trouble or what have you, like as we alluded to. I mean, Austin Davis has provided solid minutes. I mean, Adrian Nunez too. I mean, he can still play. I mean, he started the first 4 games, but I just think Michigan just hasn't needed him, because like I said, I don't think he kind of brings the defense kind of quite to the level that Franz Wagner has. And I think that just kind of, Franz Wagner just kind of brings much more on the defensive end and much more on the offense as well. But yeah, the depth has been promising so far as to what Michigan has been able to show this season.
Well, I've tried to pinch myself, I think, like a lot of Michigan fans, and not get too excited yet. I was expecting it was going to take some time, maybe an entire season, but Juwan and his staff seem to be meshing very well, and it's very clear these guys, the players, have really bought into this, haven't they?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think everyone thought there was going to be, growing pains, so to speak, with a new head coach, new system, new coaching staff. But yeah, there hasn't been any of that so far. I mean, you can look. I mean, the Appalachian State game kind of maybe when Appalachian State kind of made that comeback and kind of made it a little uneasy there. I mean, that you could have thought like, oh man, this is going to be kind of an up and down roller coaster type of season, but they really haven't had that ever since that game. It's kind of just built leads and kind of put teams away. I mean, like I said, you just look to the battle for Atlantis was kind of the big measuring stick for this team, kind of just to see where they were at. And I mean, they kind of just, dominated North Carolina and Gonzaga. And I mean, that's kind of an eye opener to, just how good this team can be. And they haven't really let up with it yet. I mean, they kind of put up over 100 points on Iowa, and that kind of speaks to the volume of this team's character and ability to kind of move on from a pretty I guess you could say demoralizing loss, I guess, in a sense. I mean, at that Louisville game, just like we said, where it just seemed like where nothing went right, and then you move on and you go to the next game where it seems like they couldn't miss. I mean, they opened the game with making 8 of their first 12 shots and kind of just getting that taste out of their mouth right away, and showing that they can bounce back from a pretty tough loss. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like this transition, everyone has taken to it pretty easy. And I mean, Juwan Howard mentioned before the season, that there's going to be growing pains. But I mean, like I said, outside of that season opener, I don't really know if you can really point to many tough times or tough stretches where this team has really kind of had to go through this season.
But when you look at some of the early season victories, Creighton, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Iowa on Friday night, et cetera, very impressive. And you can't get that lucky or can't get lucky that many times. Have you seen enough to say, yes, this is already a good team?
Oh, for sure. I think one of the key things is, like we talked about earlier, was that they had the big thing for this team was replacing the scoring production that they lost. I mean, they lost their top 3 scorers. But the one thing that's been impressive has been just the balance of scoring that they have this season. That was kind of the same thing last season, but last season it was more so if you had any of the two out of Jordan Poole, Ignas Brazdeikis, and Charles Matthews, like it seems like if two of those three guys had a good game, Michigan was more than likely going to win. But this season, you just look at the balance of scoring that this team has had, and I mean, they've been through 9 games so far, and they've already had 4 leading scorers so far this season. And you look at the Iowa game, I mean, they had 6 guys score at least 12 points, and I think they've had multiple games this season where they've had 5 players in double figure scoring. And I mean, that's just kind of one of those things where if you're an opponent and you're facing a team where, I mean, you have, or any guy in the starting lineup is capable of scoring, like 15 plus points. I mean, it's kind of hard to kind of game plan for and kind of shut down one guy when, any of the other 4 guys are capable of picking up the slack. And I think that's been one of the key takeaways so far this season. And another thing I think that's kind of been overlooked so far is Xavier Simpson's 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
You kind of look back to last season. You can think of when teams were kind of sagging off of him and, not really respecting him as a 3-point shooter, and that kind of affected other guys. If other guys were trying to drive, Xavier's defender would kind of maybe sag down to the lane and kind of cut them off. But I mean, look at his 3-point shooting numbers so far this season. He's shooting like 44%, and I think that speaks volumes to just the work he put in. And I mean, you think back to last season. 2 seasons ago it was his free throw shooting, especially late in games. That was kind of always a liability. I mean, last season that was the one thing he worked on, and that was kind of like wasn't a concern at all late in games. He kind of worked on that and shored up that area. And this season, like I said, I mean, he's shot it at a more than respectable clip, and I think if that's something that he can continue and carry on, especially in the Big Ten season, I think that's gonna help out the rest of the guys on the floor so much. Just because, like I said, teams really didn't respect him as a 3-point shooter, and it kind of, like his defender was able to go down the lane and kind of cut guys off. So I mean, if Xavier can kind of keep that his shooting percentage and just be a respectable 3-point shooter, I think that's going to bode well for the team, kind of helping keep the floor open and kind of space the floor for other guys to kind of get into the lane. And I think another thing we're gonna have to wait and see is Michigan, if they can come up with counters, because we saw Louisville coach Chris Mack kind of talked about how their focus was kind of shutting off Xavier and keeping him from getting in the lane. And we're going to have to see, if what Michigan can do to counter that. Because obviously, once we get into Big Ten season, there's going to be much more familiarity with teams, and the scouting is going to be more. There's more scouting, more film on teams. So I'm sure that's going to be something we're going to try to see again. And it'll be interesting to see what, Juwan Howard tries to do to counter that when teams maybe try to do that and cut off Xavier Simpson from getting in the lane and, kind of being able to get down there and kick out and just kind of pick apart teams in ball screens.
Here with us on our Game Day segment this week is beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News as we get back into hoops with football season, just the bowl game left, so it's winding down. So when we look ahead to January, really, I mean, everyone's going to play 2 Big Ten conference games here in December. We have Illinois coming up on Wednesday night. When you look around the Big Ten, James, I know you haven't seen everyone. I've been able to see a lot of early action from the conference. You have to say from top to bottom, wow. I mean, there is not going to be one night you can be off. It's going to be a battle. No,
it's going to be the same thing as last season. I mean, last season the Big Ten was arguably one of the best conferences in the entire country, and it's going to be the same thing this year. I mean, you just look at the AP rankings. I mean, how many teams are already ranked in like the top 20? I think there's like 5, 6 teams, something like that. I mean, you look at, it's like the same thing in KenPom. I think there's like six teams in the top 26, six Big Ten teams in the top 26 in KenPom's rankings. There's not going to be any easy nights. I mean, you're going to have to bring your A game every single night, or else you're going to get beat. And I think it's going to be kind of one of those same things like as last season. I mean, as long as you're able to defend home and you can maybe win, 50% of your road games, go 500 on the road, I mean, you have a pretty good chance of competing for a Big Ten title. But just the top teams this year. I mean, like I was pointing to earlier, I mean, Ohio State looks like one of the best teams in the nation so far. I mean, they could, quite possibly be, the number 1 team, or at least the number 2 team in the nation when the new AP rankings come out this week. I mean, like I said, you looked at Purdue. Purdue lost arguably one of the best players in the conference, and they kind of, they blew out, Virginia already this season. I think it was like a 29-point win they had. And Michigan State, I mean, granted they have 3 losses already this season. I mean, but they lost to Kentucky and Duke. And I mean, Cassius Winston's still one of the top players in the nation. He's had to go through arguably one of the worst things anyone has to go through, and it's kind of understandable that they might have, Michigan State has struggled, I guess, through as they're kind of wading through this period where, like I said, Cassius Winston's kind of going through something that no one should have to go through. Mm-hmm. And Michigan obviously is playing as well as any other team in the nation. Maryland's another team that's ranked in the top 10. So yeah, it's going to be a grind of a season once Big Ten play really picks up. And another team is Penn State. I mean, Penn State's really going to be a team that's going to push for an NCAA tournament bid. And I mean, they really kind of have picked up from last season where they kind of had that strong finish. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be there's not going to be any easy nights in the Big Ten this season. And I think it's just going to be much more of the same as it was to last season.
No, I agree with that. A lot of just from top to bottom, as we said, very, very solid conference. This week, of course, on the road to Champaign-Urbana to play Illinois. Then back, I think, Saturday is Oregon, right?
Yep, so it's going to be another tough week, and it's going to be kind of the end of this the 7-game stretch where, I think a lot of people look to as kind of maybe arguably one of the toughest stretches this team is going to go through this season. And so far, they're already 4-1 so far through this stretch. So, I mean, if they're able to pick up, these last 2 wins, I think that's going to be a pretty impressive stretch to this and start to this season heading into the last 2 games of the non-conference game heading into the new year.
Focusing for a moment on the game Wednesday night in Champaign, Illinois. We haven't mentioned them as being one of the top tier Big Ten teams, but they go down to Maryland and had a chance to win that game. This is going to be a dogfight Wednesday night in Champaign-Urbana.
Yeah, Illinois is a team where, I mean, they actually came in with much higher expectations. They're a team that, some people might have thought they were going to be probably still think they're going to be a top 5, top 6 team in the conference. I mean, they do have the talent. I mean, they have point guard Io. I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm not even going to try. That's him. They have Georgie, the forward. I mean, they have talent. And, yeah, it's going to be a grinded out of a game. I mean, it kind of was last season when Michigan went down there. It was a game where I don't think Michigan kind of really pulled away until late in the second half. And, yeah, they're going to be another team that's going to be pushing for an NCAA tournament berth this season. And, yeah, that Maryland game, that kind of was a collapse, I guess, in a sense for them. I mean, that probably was a game they should have won, and that would have been a pretty marquee win for them. And then, I mean, they're coming off 2 kind of tough losses that, and then there was the Miami game in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, too, where they kind of got down big, but they kind of made a late rally, and they only fell by 2 points. So, I mean, it's going to be kind of a team that's going to be, I don't want to say desperate, but they're going to be, looking to kind of bounce back after these 2 tough losses. So it's not going to be an easy environment for Michigan to kind of go into in the road. And obviously Michigan's still going to be one of the top 10 teams. I don't think they're going to slip too much in the rankings following that 1 loss to Louisville. So definitely it's going to be a rowdy environment. And I mean, Michigan's going to have a target in their back heading in there. And I was definitely going to give them their best shot when they head there on Wednesday.
Well, the final question for you, James, before we let you get away here. And this is a John Beilein question. It appears there is at least one unhappy camper on the Cavs roster that thinks Coach B and his college ways, his approach, his film work, it just doesn't work in the NBA. Were you surprised to see a story like that so early in the season?
No, like that's the funny thing. Like I think everyone expected a story like that to come out. I just didn't expect it to come out that soon. And I think that is kind of coupled with like the losing stretch that the Cavaliers are in. I think they've lost like 12 or 13 by the time that story came out in The Athletic. No, I wasn't surprised that a story like that did come out. Like I said, I was surprised it came out that early, just because I think the thing is that the Cavaliers front office knew what they were getting in a coach in John Beilein, but I don't think the players knew what they were getting in a coach in John Beilein. And I think that's kind of been one of the key things. And I mean, I think when you get into the NBA, I mean, obviously we know John Beilein. I mean, you look at every stop he's been at through his career, he's kind of been, a quote unquote culture builder, and he's been a teacher. And I mean, he's a guy who obviously stresses stresses fundamentals and film and things of that nature. And I mean, I don't think, you know, guys in the NBA, I mean, I don't know if that's, I mean, I think when you get to the NBA and the pro level, I mean, you're going to be dealing with guys who have egos, and I don't think they're going to want to be, you know, kind of go through these film sessions and kind of be taught fundamentals and kind of have fundamentals preached to them. I think they probably feel like they know enough, or they don't need to be, you know, kind of be taught these things, kind of go back like they're back in college. So I think there was going to be that whole kind of transition and kind of, I guess, clash of styles, so to speak. And I think that's still going to be something where John Beilein's going to have to maybe adjust a little bit to his players. But I think it's just going to take time. I mean, obviously, he has a 5-year deal that he signed with the Cavaliers, and I think it's going to be one of those things that you're maybe going to see over time, is that they're going to, I would expect the Cavaliers front office to maybe weed out the guys who are maybe, you know, discontent or, you know, are kind of disenchanted with kind of John Beilein's methods over time. But I think the one concern would be if it's the younger guys that are speaking out that maybe aren't enamored with Beilein's methods. But obviously, as you alluded to, it was kind of that anonymous player speaking out. I would think it would be more veteran players. Like I said, I think, you know, guys who have been in the league, they probably don't want to sit here and be like it's they're back in college and have to go through film and kind of be taught the right way to pivot, the right way to pass the ball with two hands and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be something where over time the Cavaliers will probably, like I said, they'll kind of weed out the guys who kind of aren't buying into Beilein's coaching style, and they'll kind of find the guys that kind of will kind of mesh with what he's trying to build there. But yeah, I don't think no one thought it was going to be easy. And I know John Beilein, you know, when he took over that job, I mean, he mentioned, you know, he knew it was going to be a challenge because, I mean, it wasn't like he was walking into a situation where he didn't know he was taking over a roster that was obviously arguably had some of the worst talent and kind of had the worst record in the NBA. And it's not gonna change isn't really gonna happen overnight. And it's gonna take time for him to kind of, you know, shape that culture there. And I mean, it's kind of a shame that it's happened this early with guys getting you know, kind of, I guess, turning against him or speaking out against him. But yeah, it wasn't a complete shock, but it's just kind of I guess it's just a bit tough to see that it happened that soon. But like I said, I think it'll take time for him to kind of build that culture, and they'll kind of have to weed out the pieces and get the right guys that are going to kind of buy into what he's trying to do there. Just because, like I said, I mean, a 5-year deal, we know that the NBA chews up guys and spits them out. I mean, they've fired coaches weeks into the season, but I think the Cavaliers knew what they were getting in John Beilein as a coach, and I think they're going to try to at least give him the time to kind of give him the pieces he needs to work with to kind of see if he can kind of turn things around there.
Well, my guest today has been beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News. And James, it's going to be a long and exciting Big Ten season. Great to have you on for the first time this year on the show, and we look forward to having you back on your next visit in January once Big Ten season is in full swing.
For sure, I'll see you then.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, it's the end of a brutal stretch for Michigan hoops to start the season. Illinois on the road Wednesday, and then back at Chrysler on Saturday for another tough matchup with Oregon. Whatever happens, I think we're all in for a very entertaining winter of Michigan and Big Ten basketball. The number 24 ranked University of Michigan women's basketball team had 4 players in double figures, led by sophomore Naz Hillman with 21 points in a 79-64 win over Oakland Sunday afternoon at Chrysler Center. They are off to an impressive 8-1 start and will be back in action on Saturday hosting Appalachian State at 3:30 p.m. Luke Morgan scored his 3rd goal in as many games, but it was not enough as hockey fell 3-1 to number 6 ranked Penn State on Saturday night at Yost. Michigan started the weekend off on the right foot with a 4-1 win on Friday night. They will next take to the ice Monday, December 30th at 4 p.m. and battle Ferris State in the Great Lakes Invitational at Little Caesars Arena. They are 6-10-2 overall, 2-7-1 in Big Ten play, not the start that they wanted this year.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, we know what's next for Michigan football, and in the coming weeks we will start previewing the Citrus Bowl matchup with Bama. That will do it for today. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to tell your friends and family about the show. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!